Capitol Hill live now to the House Radio TV gallery for remarks from leaders from the House Armed Services Committee, briefing on the sequester and defense spending cuts.
Good morning. I'm Buck McKeon from the 25th District, California, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. These are members of the committee, most of the the chairman of the subcommittees. Each of us will have a few words to say. We have the responsibility to protect our nation's defense and to make sure that those who we send out to war have the things that they need to carry out their missions and return home safely. I have never in my lifetime seen such a lack of leadership and truth-telling emanating from the White House and the Commander-in-Chief. Senator Reid and the Democratic leadership for 3 years have not passed a budget, and we've given them a pass. You've given them a pass. And I was watching General Odierno this morning. He said he's been chief of the Army for 1.5 years and never had a budget. That same thing goes for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and all of the chiefs. These men who have dedicated their life to protecting our nation, we put them in these very responsible jobs and give them no financial support, no direction. Sequestration was the president's idea over 1 year ago. And when we tried to fix it, he said, no, if you do anything, I'll veto it. Then during the campaign, he said, it won't happen. Then the last couple of weeks, he's come out and said, it's Armageddon. The world's going to end. And then the last couple of days, he softened it and said, no, it's just kind of going to. He's played all kinds of roles in this position. And when Woodward, a respected journalist, tried to lay out the truth, he was crucified, vilified, and I don't know what extent this White House will go to, but it's got to end. We are done cutting our defense. You know, we are fairly intelligent. We know that we can cut 2 cents out of $1 of government spending. Every family in this nation has had to do that. But while we've cut those 2 cents, 50 cents has come out of our national defense for every dollar we've spent. The president's talked about a balanced approach, and he won't even address what the real problem is. We are telling the president and John Boehner, when you walk out of that meeting this morning, don't plan on cutting our national defense 1 more cent. Now I'd like to turn to Mike Turner.
Thank you, Chairman McKeon. The president has called congressional leaders to the White House as props in the backdrop of his game of sequester, a game that gambles with our national security and hurts our men and women in uniform. Today, the sequester, which the president said and promised the American public would not happen, will happen with a stroke of his pen. This did not need to happen. From the proposal by the president of sequester in August of 2011, through the failure of the super committee, through his reelection campaign until today, the president has not brought forth one proposal to offset or to end sequester. The president has simply not turned in his homework. While the president is touring the country talking about sequester, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, and our men and women in uniform are preparing for furloughs to happen across the country. Furloughs that will hit people who are protecting our country and protect our national security. And while that is occurring, the only work that's being done on sequester in the White House is being done in the press shop. Yesterday, the Senate took up a bill endorsed by the White House that actually sets off sequester and replaces it with more spending. The CBO scores the bill as a $7.2 billion increase in spending. In other words, the CBO scores the Senate's homework as failing. The House, however, has passed 2 bills. They're both on the House Armed Services Committee website, both of which replace sequester with responsible cuts and both sustain our national security and reduce overall spending. The president's team on sequester has said it's irresponsible, that it's reckless, that it's wrong, that it's dangerous. We agree. In my community at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, over 13,000 people are facing furloughs, and my community is listed as number 3 in the nation that will be impacted by sequestration. Men and women who every day get up and go to work to protect our national security. Today, the president has broken his promise to the American people. And it begins with sequestration that was his idea, that he places forward today with his signature and does so on the backs of those who protect us. Mr. President, it's time to get to work, time to get behind your desk and send an actual proposal to Congress. Thank you.
And how would you have argued differently to avoid this at this point?
Let me turn to Mr. Turner on that.
Part of the problem in all of this debate is the president, at the same time that he made a promise to the American people that it would not happen, he constrained and restricted the Department of Defense of telling the American public what would occur if he broke his promise. Today we're standing here with the president having broken his promise and the Department of Defense now scrambling to get out to the American public an understanding of what this really means. I think throughout Congress and throughout the Senate and certainly throughout the American public, there is not yet an understanding, because the Department of Defense has not been able to hand in their homework of what will happen, of what this means. We have been working on this, as the chairman has been saying, since it was first proposed by the president. We have a better understanding of the consequences, and this is dangerous, and we agree with the president it's wrong.
And you guys have been talking about this, as far as I remember, almost since August of 11, every day.
There is no question that the amount of articles that could have been written about the specifics of what this means to educate the American public would have been very helpful while we were speaking words in committee rooms and press conferences. There is a gap between what everyone knows and what's going to happen. We believe that the president has broken his promise. He needs to allow the Department of Defense now to tell people what's going to occur. Thank you.
Yes.